going on, guys? EGM coming at you with a brand new video, and today I'm going to be bringing you my predictions for UFC 215 taking place this Saturday. I'm going to be giving my predictions for the main card. I'm also going to be including one fight from the prelims, which is Henry Cejudo versus Wilson Hayes, because I think that's a big matchup in the flyweight division. If you want to see all of my fight picks, they will be in the description down below, so make sure you go check that out. That being said, let's get into my fight picks. What I want to talk about is on the prelims, and it's a key matchup between two of the top flyweights in the world, former title challengers. Number 2 ranked Henry Cejudo is going up against number 5 ranked Wilson Hayes. Now this is definitely a fight that has title shot implications, and we have Henry Cejudo, who's a really strong wrestler, a really good boxer, currently has a record of 10 wins and 2 losses. 4 of his wins come by knockout. All of his knockout wins actually come in the first round. He's coming off of 2 straight losses. He actually got a title shot against current champ Demetrious Johnson. Came up short, was TKO'd in the first round. Had another fight against number 1 contender Joseph Benavidez. It was a very close fight. I think it should have been a draw, but they ended up giving the decision to Joseph Benavidez. Cejudo is really looking to get back into the win column, and I think a fight against Wilson Hayes is a really good opportunity for him to stay relevant in the division and earn another crack at the winner of Ray Borg and Demetrious Johnson. So he's going up against Wilson Hayes. Wilson Hayes currently has a record of 22 wins, 7 losses. 10 of his wins come by submission. He was on a 3-fight win streak in which he beat Hector Sandoval, Dustin Ortiz, and Uko Sasaki before eventually earning a shot at Demetrious Johnson. Demetrious Johnson just completely outclassed him, eventually submitted him in the 3rd round. Beat Wilson Hayes at his own game, which is on the mat. Made it even more impressive that Demetrious Johnson was able to submit Wilson Hayes is the fact that Wilson Hayes is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's very accomplished when it comes to the art of Jiu-Jitsu. He is one of the better Jiu-Jitsu practitioners in the flyweight division. Now, this fight with Cejudo is really going to make for an interesting matchup. I think that the only way Wilson Hayes can possibly win this fight would be on the mat, with Wilson Hayes utilizing his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Somehow, someway, he's going to have to get the fight to the mat, hope that Henry Cejudo makes a mistake, and then capitalize by sinking in a submission. But there's one issue that Wilson Hayes is going to run into, and that's being able to get Henry Cejudo to the ground. He probably has the best takedown defense in the flyweight division. He's never been taken down in all the fights that he's had in the UFC, and he's going up against probably the best wrestler in the flyweight division and one of the more accomplished wrestlers throughout the entire UFC roster. Henry Cejudo is an Olympic gold medalist in freestyle wrestling, won it back in 2008. Wrestling is definitely Henry Cejudo's strong suit. Like I said, Henry Cejudo also has really good boxing, really fast hands, pretty good power in his hands, even though he doesn't have much knockouts on his resume to show for it. And his superior takedown defense and wrestling is going to make it very hard for Wilson Hayes to even have an opportunity to win this fight. I see Wilson Hayes coming out at the beginning of the round, being a bit cautious, both fighters kind of getting a feel for each other. I see Hayes shooting a few times, those getting stuffed with ease. And I see Henry Cejudo actually landing a few good shots in the early rounds, hurting Wilson Hayes, not too badly, but still making Hayes feel his power and hesitate about coming in and trying to shoot for a takedown. And then eventually, I think in the 2nd round, Henry Cejudo will land a shot that will hurt Hayes, put him down, and eventually come away with a TKO victory in the 2nd round. Okay, so now we move on to the main card. We got a featherweight bout between Gilbert El Nino Melendez, currently ranked 15th in the featherweight division, going up against Jeremy Stephens, currently ranked 8th in the featherweight division. Now this is going to be an exciting matchup. This is my pick for fight of the night because both these guys are known to just stand up, have great heart and tremendous will to win, and both have put on some pretty good performances throughout their careers. We got Jeremy Stephens. He's a really strong wrestler, a really good boxer, has tremendous power in his hands, currently has a record of 25-13. 17 of his wins come by knockout, but he's currently on a bit of a skid. He's lost 3 of his last 4 fights to Renato Moicano, Max Holloway, Frankie Edgar. So he's definitely lost to some top competition, but he's also beaten some pretty big names like Darren Elkins, Dennis Bermudez, Renan Barão. And even in the fights in which he's came up short, he's had some pretty good success. I mean, if you look at the fight with Frankie Edgar, he landed a kick right to the chin of Frankie Edgar, wobbled him, was so close to putting him away, but in typical Frankie Edgar fashion, he was able to bounce back and come away with the unanimous decision victory. Now, against Renato Moicano, he was just outclassed throughout the entirety of the fight. He was outstruck. Moicano was just way more smooth and fluent with his combinations. So at this point in his career, I would assume that Stephens' confidence is a bit impacted, and a win here would really be good for his ego. Now he's going up against Gilbert Melendez, who's an established lightweight, at one time one of the best lightweights in the world. They're not having the same success in the UFC's lightweight division as he had in the lightweight divisions of other promotions like WEC and Strikeforce, where he was actually the lightweight champ. He's deciding to move down to featherweight. This is going to be his featherweight debut. He's currently 1-4 in his last 5 fights, and 1-4 is his record in the UFC. He currently has a record of 22 wins, 6 losses. 11 of his wins come by knockout. He too, like Jeremy Stephens, is just another guy trying to get back into the win column and gain some momentum moving forward. But you're talking about a guy who at one time competed for the lightweight championship in the UFC twice. He had 2 shots, once against Benson Henderson and another time against Anthony Pettis. Now, by no means has he lost to bums in the lightweight division. He's fought solid competition since the moment that he stepped into the UFC because he was such a great talent outside of it. He just hasn't been able to win against these big names. So he's moving down, and I think a fight with Jeremy Stephens is a perfect opportunity to show that he still has what it takes to compete against the guys in the UFC. Now, Gilbert Melendez is a really good striker, a really good boxer, a really good wrestler, an excellent ground and pound. He has a lot of power in his hands, as I mentioned. About half of his wins come by knockout. And he is also a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so he's a pretty solid all-around fighter. More so than his opponent Jeremy Stephens. Jeremy Stephens is much more one-dimensional, just looks to land one clean shot that's going to knock your head off. That's really all Jeremy Stephens wants to do in a fight, is just land that punch that's going to put you to sleep. So with that being said, if you compare skill sets, you would see that Gilbert Melendez is the better fighter. However, the only problem I have in picking Gilbert Melendez is that he already didn't have the same success in the lightweight division, albeit he fought. A lot of the fighters that he fought were better or of a higher caliber than Jeremy Stephens. But he's moving down, so he's cutting 10 extra pounds of weight. I'm not sure how he's going to look at this weight, and if he's still going to have the same energy levels and same gas tank that he had in the lightweight division. So there's too many question marks surrounding Gilbert Melendez. However, he is a really good fighter, really good striking, and he does have the ability to outbox Jeremy Stephens, but Jeremy Stephens is no scrub. Has stepped inside the octagon with current and former champs in Max Holloway and Frankie Edgar. But there's no doubt in my mind that this fight is going to stay standing up for all 15 minutes. This is definitely going to be a scrap, and it's even more so because these two guys are looking to get back into the win column, as I said earlier. So they have a lot riding on the line for this fight. I just think that Jeremy Stephens is a safer pick. I think, we've seen what he looks like in the 145-pound divisions. We've seen him compete against some of the best in that weight class. Both men are very good wrestlers, but I think it's going to be an entertaining fight. I do see this match going the distance. However, I see the judges giving the nod to Jeremy Stephens. So I see Jeremy Stephens winning this fight via split decision. Next up, we got a light heavyweight matchup between the 13th ranked light heavyweight and Tyson Pedro going up against the 10th ranked light heavyweight in the division, Ilir Latifi. Now, Tyson Pedro is very young in the sport. Currently only has a record of 6 wins, 0 losses, so he's currently undefeated. Only 1 of his wins come by knockout, 4 of his wins come by submission. He's only had 2 fights in the UFC so far. He's won both of them. He made his UFC debut against Khalil Roundtree, in which he was hurt badly. Roundtree landed a few shots that stunned Tyson Pedro. Was very close to putting him away. Pedro showed resilience, was able to recover, eventually got into the clinch, in which he's very good. He's very good in the clinch. Landed a few good shots, took Roundtree to the ground, and eventually sunk in a submission. Now, the second time he stepped in there with Paul Craig, and he finished Paul Craig in the first round via TKO with rather ease. Now, neither one of his first 2 opponents were ranked inside the top 15, but now he's taking a step up in competition. He's fighting the 10th ranked light heavyweight in the world in Ilir Latifi. Ilir Latifi currently has a record of 13-5, 6 wins come by knockout, 4 of his wins come by submission. He currently has a record of 5-3 in the UFC. He had won 3 straight before jumping up to fight Ryan Bader, who at the time I believe was ranked 5th in the light heavyweight division, and he was actually doing pretty well against Bader. He was landing a few good shots. He's very explosive, has a lot of power in his hands. He wobbled Ryan Bader, actually dropped him. It looked like he was going to put him away. Bader recovered, and eventually in the second round, Ryan Bader landed a clean knee to the face of Latifi and put him to sleep. But aside from that, Latifi is a really strong wrestler. He's actually wrestled on the Swedish national team. Pretty decent boxing, like I said, very explosive with his hands, likes to blitz a lot, really strong leg kicks, and he's just physically strong. Like, he's just a beast. He's really short for the division, though. He's a stocky guy, and he is going to be giving up a huge size and reach advantage in this fight. Tyson Pedro is actually 5 inches taller and will have a reach advantage of 6 inches. So that's definitely going to be something to look out for in this fight. Is Tyson Pedro, although very young, rather inexperienced, going to be able to utilize those kind of advantages against an explosive and aggressive fighter like Ilir Latifi? This is really going to be a good test to see if Tyson Pedro is legit, and if he's going to be able to stay calm under the pressure that Latifi is going to throw at him. Latifi's going to be in his face since the beginning of the bell. Now, the way I see this fight playing out is Latifi's going to come out. He's going to try to get in the inside. He's going to try to close the distance on Tyson Pedro. And if he's smart, he's going to attack Pedro's body and Pedro's legs, try to slow him down a little bit. Although Latifi is a really good wrestler, I don't see him trying to get Pedro to the ground. I don't think it'll be a smart move, being that Tyson Pedro is a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's really good on the mat. I just see Latifi coming in really aggressively as he usually does in typical Latifi fashion, and while doing that, I do see Tyson Pedro actually landing a counter right punch. He has a lot of power in his hands, a really good right hand. Even though you don't see it on his resume, he only has one fight that he's finished by knockout, but he has power. Trust me, he does have power, and I think it's going to catch Latifi off guard. I think he's going to hurt him, and I do think this fight is going to end rather quickly. If you look at Tyson Pedro's previous 6 fights, all of his 6 fights have finished inside the first round, and the longest fight that he's been in has only lasted 4 minutes and 7 seconds. So I do see Tyson Pedro getting the first round submission in this fight. I see him wobbling him early, stunning Latifi. Latifi's gonna shoot for a takedown. Pedro will stuff it, take his back, and then sink in a rear naked choke. I do think at some point Tyson Pedro is gonna bite off more than he can chew. I just don't think it's gonna be in this fight. Therefore, I do see Tyson Pedro coming away with a first round submission victory. Next up, we got a welterweight bout between Neil Magny and Rafael dos Anjos. Now, Neil Magny is currently ranked 6th in the welterweight division. Currently has a record of 19-6. 10 of his wins come by decision. He's won 3 of his last 4 fights. He's beaten Johnny Hendricks, Hector Lombard, and Kelvin Gastelum. 2 of those fights in which I think he lost, though I think he did lose to Johnny Hendricks in a close decision, and I think Kelvin Gastelum did beat him, but nevertheless, those ended up as wins on his record. So he's officially won 3 of his last 4 fights, looking to continue his climb up the rankings and eventually earn a title shot. And this is going to be the first time Magny has fought since December of last year, so it's been about 9 months since the last time he stepped into the octagon. Now he's going to be going up against Rafael dos Anjos, currently ranked 10 in the welterweight division. The former lightweight champion of the world beat Anthony Pettis to obtain the lightweight championship before eventually defending it against Donald Cerrone and then eventually losing his belt to Eddie Alvarez. He took another fight in the lightweight division against Tony Ferguson, lost that fight as well, so he decided it was time to move up. Now he's in the welterweight division. He is currently 1-0 in this weight class, made his welterweight debut against Tarek Seferdin, in which he came away with a decision victory. And dos Anjos himself has came out and said that he feels much more comfortable at this weight class, not having to cut so much weight because he is a really big guy. He walks around at about 190 pounds. He had to cut a lot of weight to make the 155-pound division. But nevertheless, he's an established fighter who at one time was the best lightweight in the world. But with the move up, he's going to be giving up a size advantage to a lot of these fighters. Neil Magny especially. Neil Magny is 6'3", but what Rafael dos Anjos lacks in size and reach at this division, he makes up for it in skill and fight IQ. He's a really good striker, a really excellent powerful leg kicks, a really strong grappler, a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's just a very, very skilled fighter and a very accomplished athlete, but this is really going to be a tough matchup for him. Neil Magny is about 6 inches taller, has a reach advantage of about 10 inches, so he's going to try to box him up from the outside. He's going to try to keep the distance. It's going to be interesting to see how Rafael dos Anjos decides to close the distance. He's going to have to put pressure. He's going to have to get on the inside and not let Neil Magny utilize his reach and size and length. And he's also going to have to be aware of the ground game of Neil Magny, being that he's so long and so lanky. He can sink in a variety of different submissions from different angles and different spots. But I do think Neil Magny is going to come out in this fight. He's going to be as cautious and as technical, as he always is. He's going to try to outpoint Rafael dos Anjos. But as tall and as long as Neil Magny is, he has struggled against smaller fighters. If you look at Johnny Hendricks, who's about 5'10", 5'11". Like I said earlier, I think he beat Neil Magny. And Kelvin Gastelum, the same thing. He's only 5'9", and he had a lot of success against Neil Magny on the feet and grappling exchanges. So it definitely will not be impossible for Rafael dos Anjos to have success in this fight. I think he's technically the better fighter, the more skilled fighter. I think as the fight progresses, he's going to wear down Neil Magny with body shots, leg kicks, grind him up against the cage, maybe land a few takedowns. But I do see Rafael dos Anjos grinding his way to a hard-earned and hard-fought unanimous decision victory against Neil Magny. Now I don't really see any point in the fight in which it's almost finished. Like, I don't see anybody getting knocked out or anybody getting submitted. I do think it's going to be a grind of a fight. It's going to come down to who implements their game plan better. Is Neil Magny going to be able to utilize his size advantage, or is Rafael dos Anjos going to be able to get on the inside? But I do give the advantage to Rafael dos Anjos, and that is why I think he'll come away victorious. Now next up, we get into the co-main event of this pay-per-view card, a women's bantamweight championship bout between the current champion Amanda Nunes and current #1 contender Valentina Shevchenko. Amanda Nunes currently has a record of 14 wins, 4 losses, 10 wins come by knockout. She has 11 finishes in the first round. She's currently riding a 5-fight win streak, won 3 straight, earned her shot at then champ Miesha Tate, absolutely annihilated her in 1 round, wowed her badly on the feet, eventually sunk in a choke, submitted her in the first round, and then defended her belt back at UFC 207 in December when she took on Ronda Rousey, and Ronda Rousey's long-awaited comeback demolished her in the first round, landed power punch after power punch, and wobbled Rousey badly until the point where the ref had to step in and stop the fight. And it only took her less than a minute to take out Ronda Rousey, so the punching power that she has compared to a lot of these other women is incomparable. She has so much power, and you see that immediately what separates her from the women like Miesha Tate, from Ronda Rousey. She's just so powerful, has so much punching power. She's such a good boxer, such a good striker. She's also a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a brown belt in Judo as well. Now the last time she actually lost a fight was against Kat Zingano, where she was TKO'd in that 5 via ground and pound. She has undoubtedly evolved since that fight. She's become a true champion, a really good all-around fighter, and now she's looking to defend her belt for the 2nd time, this time against Valentina Shevchenko. Valentina Shevchenko currently has a record of 14 wins, 2 losses, 4 of her wins come by knockout. Currently has a record of 3-1 in the UFC. She's currently riding a 2-fight win streak in which she completely outclassed Holly Holm on the feet, and her recent fight back in January against Juliana Pena, in which she submitted her. Now the only loss that she has on her record in the UFC was against current champ Amanda Nunes. They actually fought at UFC 196 last year. That was actually a pretty entertaining fight. Now if you look at Amanda Nunes fights, you really see her for her punching power and her aggressiveness early on, and her ability to land power punches early on in the rounds. That's how she wins most of her fights, with her boxing, with her striking. But in the fight with Valentina Shevchenko, the first 2 rounds she won, but most of her success actually came on the ground. She was able to take Valentina Shevchenko down, hold her down, pound her out a little bit, ground and pound her, land a few elbows, busted Valentina Shevchenko up a little bit, and then towards the end of the 2nd round, at the beginning of the 3rd, Nunes was just gassed. She had nothing else to give, and once she gassed out, it was off Valentina Shevchenko from there. She got her in the clinch, and Valentina Shevchenko was excellent in the clinch, landed a few good knees, a few solid elbows, wobbled Amanda Nunes, really hurt her badly, but just couldn't get the stoppage. Now a lot of people like to speculate that if the fight was actually a 5-round fight, that Valentina Shevchenko would have won, because she has the better cardio, because she has the better gas tank, she's in better shape. But that wasn't the case. It was only a 3-round fight. This time it's going to be a 5-round fight, so if Nunes gasses, it's going to be very bad for her. Nunes cannot get gassed out. The reason being is because Valentina Shevchenko is a world-class striker. She's competed in Muay Thai at the highest level, kickboxing in the highest level. She's just a great striker, very precise, very technical, very accurate with her strikes, and she's in excellent condition. She has a great gas tank, and I think Shevchenko is going to be a bit more prepared. If you look, this fight was actually scheduled for UFC 213. It was actually going to be the main event. It was pulled off just hours before the fight because Amanda Nunes was hospitalized due to, I believe, chronic sinusitis. But the fight was pulled off. She said she's healthy now. She feels much better. She's much more prepared for the fight. So who knows how Nunes is going to feel after this week's weight cut. But this is how I see the fight going down. I see Nunes coming out. I don't see her being as aggressive as she is early on, because unlike Miesha Tate and Ronda Rousey, Shevchenko is a threat on the feet. So I see her being a bit more cautious, conserving her and waiting and picking her shots, and maybe trying to replicate the same success that she had in the previous fight by taking Valentina Shevchenko down and ground and pounding her. She cannot be too conservative, because if she's too conservative and she's not throwing enough to try to save all that energy, Shevchenko's going to outpoint her. Shevchenko's going to be throwing the punches, because Shevchenko's going to be the one pushing forward and throwing the punches, landing combinations, because she can afford to do all that, because she's in way better shape than Amanda Nunes. Even with Nunes trying to be smarter in her approach, I don't think it's going to work out that well for her. I do see her losing rounds 1 and 2, maybe winning round 3. but eventually she's gonna gas out. It doesn't matter how little she throws, eventually you're gonna get gassed out because she's a big girl for the women's bantamweight division. But like I said, I think Nunes is gonna come out cautious, but eventually she's gonna tire, and once Valentina Shevchenko senses that she's slowing down just a tad, she's gonna turn it up a notch. She's gonna throw more combinations, throw punches from different angles, throw kicks, mix kicks in there, and I do see her actually getting the stop late in the fight. I think maybe late 4th, early 5th round, but I do see Valentina Shevchenko coming away with the victory. I'm gonna say via TKO in the 4th round, and being crowned the new women's bantamweight champion of the world. We move on to the main event of the evening, a title bout between the current champion Demetrious Johnson, who is looking to break the record for title defenses. Currently has 10 straight defenses. He's looking to break the record with 11 straight against current 3rd ranked flyweight in the world in Ray Borg. Ray Borg currently has a record of 11-2. 6 of his wins come by submissions. Currently has a record of 5-2 in the UFC. The only losses come to Justin Scoggins. He's currently on a 2-fight win streak. He's beaten Luis Smolka, and most recently he beat Lucio Formiga in a decision victory. He's never been finished in his entire career, and he seems to be one of the bright up-and-coming stars, not just in that division, but in the entire UFC. He's only 24 years of age right now, but now he's taking on a whole new challenge in the current champion Demetrious Johnson. Demetrious Johnson currently has a record of 26 victories with only 2 losses. 10 of his wins come by submissions, and the only 2 losses that he has on his current record is against former bantamweight champion Dominic Cruz and former bantamweight fighter Brad Pickett. So both of his fights that he's lost have been in the bantamweight division against bigger fighters. Now remember, Demetrious Johnson is only 5'3", but he's won 12 straight fights and he's defended his belt 10 times. He's going for the 11th straight defense against Ray Borg, would break the all-time record for title defenses. The last time Demetrious stepped into the octagon was back in April, in which he submitted Wilson Hayes, completely outclassed him. And Demetrious Johnson, what makes him so great is that he's been great for so long, right? As I said, he's been the champion for many years now. He's the first ever UFC flyweight champion after they held a tournament to determine who would be the first flyweight title holder. Now, it's been Demetrious Johnson. There has not been a new champion since. What makes him so great is even though he's been great for so long, is the fact that he continues to get better. He continues to work on his craft. He continues to add different things into his approach to certain fights. He's just so amazing to watch and such a student of the game. And what makes him so special is he takes pride in beating you at your own game. So Demetrious Johnson is coming into this fight with literally no weaknesses. He has no weaknesses. There is nothing that the man cannot do. Ray Borg is very young. He's very scrappy. I do think he does bring something different, something that Demetrious Johnson hasn't seen before. He's very fast. He has pretty good punching power. He's very fast with his hands, pretty good boxing, but he's a really good wrestler, and he's very strong for that weight class. The way I see this playing out is I think Ray Borg's going to come in here, try to make it a dogfight, try to be as dirty and as gritty as he can, try to make it very scrappy, because that's the kind of fighter that he is. But Demetrious Johnson is just too smart, too smooth, too crisp, and he's just way too good to lose to somebody like Ray Borg that we haven't really seen much of what he can do. So I think Demetrious Johnson is going to go in there, go to work. I don't think it'll be a fairly one-sided fight. I do think Ray Borg will give us some flashes of excitement, but I just think that eventually in the later rounds especially, Ray Borg is going to be lost because Demetrious Johnson is so experienced and so good. I think Ray Borg will land a few of his signature takedowns, but I think Demetrious Johnson will get back up. It's just the fact that Ray Borg is stronger, so I do see him getting him to the ground at some point. I just don't think he'll be able to hold him down, but on the feet, Ray Borg doesn't have a shot. Demetrious Johnson, his boxing is too crisp. His kickboxing is excellent. He knows how to throw in a variety of different combinations, different looks, and like I said, there's just no aspect of the fight game in which Ray Borg is better or has an advantage in Demetrious Johnson. But being that Ray Borg is only 24, I think this is going to be a learning experience for him. I think he's going to take this loss, he's going to bounce back from it, and he's going to come back better than ever and potentially be a future title holder in that class. I just think not right now. I think Demetrious Johnson is still in his prime, still has plenty to give, and is still just a way better mixed martial artist than Ray Borg. I don't think he'll get the finish. I don't think he'll stop Ray Borg, but I do think that he'll completely outclass him for 5 rounds and come away with a unanimous decision victory and break the record for the most title defenses in the UFC. Now, if you like these predictions, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, comment down below your predictions for this Saturday's card, and stay tuned for more content.